All righty. Well, welcome everyone on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. We have a great honor of having Dean Shaw once again presenting to us. Dean Shaw is the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid for Stanford University undergraduate. He has had many years of experience at Stanford, University of Colorado, Yale, and he's been at Stanford since 2005, and um, and he's been leading the department since then. And he has a wealth of knowledge and wealth of experience. And I think this is the fifth time that you're presenting to us, so we're glad that you could make time for us. We also have the honor of having Dr. Anderson, who actually is our first time here. And her role is she supports all the undergraduate transfer students from transition and integration into Stanford academic community until their graduation through direct advising, nurturing, campus connections, and program development. Dr. Anderson joined the academic advising team at Stanford as a resident undergraduate advising director, and she collaborated with numerous campus teams actively working towards increasing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, as well as overall well-being for all the students, staff, and faculty. Since 2023, Dr. Anderson became the co-coordinator of the Stanford Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program. Prior to coming to Stanford, Dr. Anderson was an assistant dean and academic coordinator at Washington University in St. Louis, and earned her master's and doctorate in political science. Additionally, Dr. Anderson holds a degree in public policy and psychology and has work experience in local and state government. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Joanne, for having us. And you named a few places I worked, but I also worked at the place that shall not be named across San Francisco Bay. They call
Well,
it.
I wasn't going to mention that, but you
Call
know.
it Cal or something like that. But anyway, it isn't worth mention. So good for you. And thank you for inviting us to this really important organization. I'd come back because of the important work that you do and the gathering of all of these community college potential transfer students. I understand that you all have a broad range of academic interest in your transitions to four-year colleges. And of course, many have graduate school in your sites too. That's fine, and you should. Education is very meaningful. Your sponsor, Pre-Med CC, they clearly support you in considering a variety of health professions which necessitate a strong educational foundation. And your pursuit of higher education is indeed an honorable objective and so important. I see you all will have many expert practitioners. I looked at your schedule ahead in the health arena, sharing with you in some future webinars. That's really important to understand what the lay of the land is. And I'm so thankful that Dr. Ingrid Anderson has joined us. She's a new colleague for me, director of the transfer advising program, and certainly a mentor to transfers at Stanford. Ingrid is an incredible resource. She will who helps enrolling and continuing transfers to navigate their way through a Stanford education. Perhaps some of you will apply to Stanford, and many of you are determining your next educational steps. But indeed, it's important to review your options, which are many, as you think about where you want to be in your educational trajectory. My first piece of advice is consider there is no absolute best place to land in higher education, and you will have wonderful options because you're doing the right thing to get to the next step. Many state colleges and universities have articulation agreements tied to guaranteed admission. I was actually involved in authoring those at Cal many, many years ago with local community colleges. I would suggest those pathways as appropriate in approaching the completion of the breadth requirements. That is what the UCs ask for, or the state university system might be helpful in terms of taking the right courses. Also, engagement in community college honors programs is really valuable and will provide you with excellent preparation for transferring to a four-year college or university. Now, turning to Stanford, rest assured, we evaluate and admit wonderful students at the transfer level. You are most welcome to review our expectations and admissions process, and we have information on the Stanford website. So with your copious free time, you can go in there and take a look at what we have to say. Today, I simply want you to know that we do truly celebrate and embrace our transfers. And this being said, I also want to be honest. I want to be honest that the transfer applicant review is very, very competitive at Stanford, but I emphasize there's no strict formula. You should know that 50% of the successful transfers this fall at Stanford are from community colleges. And just a little background, 14% are US veterans in the armed services. Now, we didn't do this on purpose, but 2 Army, 2 Navy, 2 Air Force, and 2 Marines. We didn't do that on purpose. It just happened that way. And Stanford is an active member of the Service to School group called VetLink. And indeed, last year's transfer class came from 56 colleges in 16 states. So you can see quite a lot of breadth in terms of the students that come here as transfer students. And the age of our incoming class ranges from the age of 17 to 38. I share this with you to bring emphasis that there really is no typical transfer student. 37% are from first generation backgrounds, first in their family to go on to a four-year college. Transfer students bring with them, broad, deep, diverse life experiences and perspectives. And this makes for an incredibly robust, interesting, and compelling community. And I confess that, and I think Ingrid knows this, that this group is among my very, very favorite because of their life experience and stories, your life experience and stories. 98% of the transfers that are here live on campus and are usually in the same residential neighborhood. The community of transfers is very, very strong. So if you're planning to apply to Stanford, the deadline is March 15th, and decisions will be communicated by mid-May. The admissions officers at this point are deep in the review process for the first-year students and will turn to transfer review in March. Again, the process is most competitive, but you will find that we do not prescribe absolutes in defining the courses you will be taking. That being said, generally, you should engage in classes that would be academically transferable, as I said before, across the humanities, social, and natural sciences and engineering. We're looking at coursework that would be applicable to breadth requirements at the lower division level, that is the first 2 years here, and hopefully exceptional preparation to navigate towards your area of interest, your desired major at the upper division. Most of you, as members of pre-med CC, are undoubtedly enrolling in courses that would meet these conditions. You will, of course, have wonderful academic advising as it relates to the goals of pursuing the health sciences and also preparing you to think about the graduate level as well. It's also advisable to review transfer credit policies at Stanford if it is in your sights or if you are admitted. Each department has oversight on what courses will apply to the major, and Ingrid could give you some information perhaps about that. Let me shift for a moment to the expectations and the essence of the admissions review. Well, we read all applications that are submitted. You're going to be doing a lot of hard work to fill them out, and we're going to read them page from front to back. The applications include your part providing demographic information and responding to essays and short questions. You'll have a faculty and college officials providing recommendations and comments. You are allowed one supplemental letter of support beyond the 3 required academic and college recommendations. And we have a strong preference that students applying will do so with aggregate records equal to two full years of college coursework. That might be courses in progress towards the end of your second year, with the prevalent coursework in the present and recent past. Many of you may have attended multiple institutions. We're hopeful to see a lot of the work from the one you're presently in. We hope you've compiled 2 years of transferable coursework, and of course your grades count. Of course they count as well. All transcripts of all coursework attempted at all colleges attending, I'm emphasizing this, are required. Every school you go to, you are required to submit those transcripts. And then high school graduation or high school school equivalency is required as well. And for those of you interested in the arts, we also actually invite fine arts portfolio submission in both art and music, which has a March 20th deadline and information on the system about how you might do that. Stanford for the coming cycle, that's 25-26. That would be this cycle for those of you applying will be test optional. So the ACT, American College Test, or the Scholastic SAT beginning is test optional, so you can or cannot submit those scores. But beginning next year, for those of you that are just getting ready and going to be spending one more year in community college, testing will be required at that time. You're going to have an opportunity to respond to questions that reflect your academic intellectual interest and 3 options of possible areas of interest. That is, you can rank order what you might be interested in. For example, being pre-med, which many of you may consider where you are, might be, you might pursue majors in the life science, chemistry, but that doesn't have to be the only options that you have. You can keep in mind that as long as you are meeting the pre-med requirements, you can major in other areas, such as English or anywhere else in the curriculum, as long as you take the kinds of courses necessary to apply to maybe advanced medical school or to other health science graduate programs. Joining academic expectations, you may be pleased to know our review moves well beyond the curriculum and grades to learn more about you. The review is holistic and goes beyond the academic record to consider your story and context of your life experience and trajectory. Our enrolling transfers come with many experiences and perspectives, and these will contribute to the Stanford community. Your voice matters. Several examples of our application questions are, please provide a statement that addresses the reasons for transferring and the objectives you hope to achieve. What piece of advice would you share with your younger self? Describe what experience led you to this understanding. The Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. As I said, there's no formula for admission to Stanford. In applying, we ask that you be your authentic, truthful self. We will do the best we can to give you a very fair review. And ultimately, whether successful or not, we know you will have lots of strong options. I really applaud you for your commitment to move on to the four-year sector colleges and universities and beyond. Certainly an attractive aspect of Stanford for most is the realization of affordability, a major, major consideration. If family income is below 100,000 with typical assets, you would receive full tuition, room and board, which is unbelievable generally. And if household income is below 150,000, you would receive full tuition. Affordability is important, and we try to assist you in avoiding at all costs taking loans. So a lot of information I threw at you. You can pick some of that up on the website. But to follow up, I want to now turn it over to Dr. Anderson, who can provide observations about the transfer transition and the incredible role she plays along with her colleagues in providing support for you as transfer students if you're admitted, and then respond to anything I might have shared which was wrong. I bet I said something wrong, and so I'll turn it over to Ingrid for follow up here.
Thank you, Dean Shaw. It's a pleasure to join you in this meeting. I've been working with this important group. It is my first time, and I'm not too crazy about following Dean Shaw, who has so much experience and such passion for transfer students, but I will do the best that I can. Really one thing that I want to reiterate, because I saw some questions about this in the question and answer, was about whether or not community college students or older students are welcome as Stanford transfers. And yes, one of the things I love about my job is getting to work with such a diverse group of students, and especially the wisdom that you bring to Stanford with you. In some ways, it makes my job easier. But also it makes it more fulfilling because I love interacting with transfer students who are from any kind of school, but I really enjoy working with those who are older also, and from community colleges and first gen and low income also. So I don't have a lot to present. I will provide some very basic information. It's the same information that I provide to students who have been accepted and have to make a decision within a few weeks about whether or not they want to commit to coming to Stanford. And that's just a discussion of the graduation requirements. So now you know that you don't have to be from a specific kind of background to get to Stanford. But you will want to know some of the details about Stanford and its policies as far as graduating and how they might work for you. And so Stanford requires, they have about 5 general categories of requirements for all students, including transfer students. And the first one is that you will, hopefully, you may not know already, I shouldn't assume that you know we're on the quarter system. And so most students attend courses or enrolled in courses from September through June. And those breaking down into 10-week quarters. Which goes by very quickly. So that's one thing that a lot of transfer students have to adjust to. You have to earn a total of 180 units. And the registrar's office has a process for counting semesters, units you've earned in the semester as part of our quarterly unit count. Most transfer students bring in the equivalent of 2 years, and that's about 90 credits, 90 units to Stanford. And that means that we expect them to graduate in 2 years after they earn another 90 units. So 180, that's the total number of units you'll have to earn, which will include the units that you're transferring as general credit to Stanford. So that's the first requirement. You have to earn a minimum of 180 units. The second requirement or category is that you have to satisfy the you have to complete a major and satisfy whatever requirements that that major department has. And most majors require about, I'm just going to ballpark because they vary, but most of them require about 80 units, some of them less, some of them more. So if you have, if you're bringing in 90 units, um, you might think, oh my God, I have to earn 90 more units, and 80 of those units might be major requirements. Not necessarily, because it is possible to transfer some of the general ed to take some of those units and have them count towards your major. Um, there are actually, and since we're going to talk about, since I am talking about the transfer of units, there's really the transfer process takes place in two different steps, really. The first one, after you get accepted, happens right after you get accepted. The registrar's office will look over your transcripts, and then they will decide how many general credits you transfer, how many general credits Stanford will count from the previous courses that you've taken. And you'll get a certain figure. They'll tell you what it is. And so if you've finished an associate's degree, then more than likely you're going to bring in the maximum of 90 units. If you've, been taking classes and you're halfway through an associate's degree, then you're probably going to be bringing in 45 units. And then one of the first things I do when I start onboarding students is we start talking about what you want to major in, what you want to think you major in. And then I will talk to you about what you would need to do to have the major departments evaluate your coursework from your previous institution for major equivalency. So that's the point at which you start to examine and figure out how many courses or how many units you need to take to finish a major. I want to make sure you will not have this information before classes start. So it can be a bit uncomfortable. And I believe in transparency and being frank. It can be a little bit uncomfortable for transfer students when they start their courses in September, if they don't know what major requirements they've already satisfied. But I make it a point, you have to meet with each student one-on-one, and we go through your transcript and we go through the majors that you're thinking about. And we come up together with a list of courses that are good for you to take that first quarter. The ones that will not have you duplicating any of your work from before. But ones that will also help you pursue a major. And then I will guide you in what you need to do to have your previous coursework evaluated through by the different departments, because each department has its own policies about what kinds of courses they require and what processes and procedures they have for evaluating your coursework. So it's a very hands-on process for me and the student, and I enjoy it actually because it gives me a chance to get to know students very well and to guide them in figuring out their path to graduation. A long story short, you will not, like some universities will tell you exactly what courses you can transfer in before you apply. We don't do that. You will find that out after you start the process, after you accept your admission to Stanford. Okay, so I've talked about the two requirements, the number of units you need, and that you need to complete a major, and some of the processes associated with that. Another requirement that each student has to satisfy is the writing requirement, and that is a series of courses. You take two writing classes, writing and communications. We call them writing and rhetorics. And in fact, we call the office or the program that helps to guide you through the writing requirements is called POWER, PWR, to stand for the Programming and Writing and Rhetoric. And so you'll take a Power 1 course or an equivalent to a Power 1 course. You'll take a Power 2 course or the equivalent of a Writing 2 course or the equivalent of a Power 2 course to satisfy your Writing 2 requirement. And then you'll take a course that we call WIM, which is an acronym for Writing in the Major. Everybody who wants to graduate from Stanford has to do those. Occasionally, but not often, students are able to get equivalency for the Power 1 course through a writing course that they took at their previous institution. But Stanford has pretty high standards for what goes into completing a writing 1 requirement. So more often than not, the students will end up doing 3 writing courses while they're at Stanford. So that's 3 requirements that we've talked about. The 4th requirement is, we call it the ways of, and ways stands for, I think, ways of learning, ways of doing. I'm so used to the acronyms and things that I sometimes forget about forget what things stand for. The ways requirement is our distribution requirement. And you might remember when you were in high school, and maybe you have this in community college, where you have to make sure you spread out your learning so you're not just focusing on one subject. And Stanford's ways requirement requires you to study beyond just your major. However, instead of saying we have a math requirement, a science requirement, a social studies requirement, Stanford focuses on the way that you learn, making sure that you are learning things in different ways, hence ways requirement. People who entered Stanford as Frosh have to do 11 classes over there's 8 different ways categories. And some of them require 2 classes. Community college, or not community college, transfer students at most have to do 10 ways. But if you're bringing in, how many ways you have to complete depends on how many general credits you transfer in. So the students who are bringing in 90 units will only have to do 5 ways, and they get to choose which ones that they have to do. But they definitely have to be done, and you can't graduate without them. So if you really only want to take science classes or something like that, you're going to have to push yourself to take something like creative expression or artistic interpretation, and it'll push you to move a little bit beyond what you might be comfortable with, which is a good thing because we want you to have a broad education. And so that's 4. The final requirement is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I am blanking. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes with me. I'll come back to that actually. Ways, writing. Yeah, I will come back to that. Let me see. Is there anything else that I think is really important for anybody who's considering coming to Stanford to know?
Dr. Anderson,
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions and I think confusion about how many maximum units they need to have, how many minimum units they need to transfer.
Okay. The maximum is 90 units. The maximum that you can bring in is 90 units, but you have to keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily mean, that doesn't mean you have 90 units at your school and therefore 90 units will count, because they will be they might be, if you go to a semester school, they will not count 1-to-1.
Yeah,
So
90 quarter units is 60 semester units.
exactly. Thank you.
Somebody else has this question. What if they have 105 quarter units? What happens? Or more than 90 quarter units?
Yep, you can only bring in 90. That's the maximum that you can bring. And that's the limit.
And they want to know if they will be denied admission if they have 105
Oh, no. You just won't be able to transfer all of those units, but that's not going to prevent you. Not that actually, let me backtrack because when you talk about admissions, that's nothing that I know about. And Dean Shaw can talk about that.
I think sometimes we find students have attended different schools and they could run up more credits, but of course we're only going to accept that 90 quarter. Often or very often, the students that are transferring are going to get their associate's degree. So whatever went on in the community college in that 2-year segment, we often will turn and look and see if the associate degree is in play. And by the way, I while that's our preference is that you've moved to that level, we have students also that may be attempting to transfer with somewhat fewer units, and that doesn't, you're not excluded from applying to the university. You may have very good reasons for that, actually, and but you have to have a pretty good foundation in courses that you've taken, and sometimes we spread it across a lot. But we subscribe to that, and the answer is no. If you're in a 2-year program and you're applying from a 2-year program, we're not going to penalize you if you go over in some fashion because you might have changed your mind along the way. So it's probably okay.
So if you have 110 units, you're not going to reject someone.
No, I think the reality is though, you have to think about that, whether credit policies in other places would accept most of it. That's really important, but we're gonna cap it at 90. So that's, or at 60 semester units. So that's what because the rule at Stanford is you are required to spend 2 years at Stanford to get a degree. So you can't come in and just spend one. You have a 2-year requirement, so you're going to lose those units. I might just say one more thing, and probably Ingrid will, because I know this happens. You may also assume that your courses are that they might in fact count both breadth and major. Remember that those determinations will be made, but we don't have articulation agreements. And those are made by the registrar in consultation with the academic department. And in some cases, you may not get the credit for the courses. You might not, at least towards a major, but they might count towards breadth. There's no absolutes here. You're gonna have to just get ready to realize that it's going to take some work to finally, with Ingrid, to try to figure out exactly how you're landing.
Exactly. Thank you.
Somebody wants to know, why don't you have articulation agreements with the 4,100 community colleges in the whole country?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a time issue. Yeah, exactly right. We just do not. And you'd be interested, we have a community college kids from all over the country. So that's kind of interesting. So if you're in California Community College, cool, but you're going to meet students from everywhere else and then from all sectors. But we'd have a lot of trouble building articulation agreements. I could never get the faculty. We're just trying to get them to do something simple. That would kill them.
Yeah, and the other thing is that somebody else asked why the UC and the UCs and CSUs are mandated by the state to do it. It's a law, and they pay for it too. So it's really expensive. It's not a cheap thing to do.
Yeah, and that's an incredible system. I have to be honest with you. If your goal is to come to go to the next segment of your career and spend 2 years, you're basically assured that you get the credits. If you take the credits that are indicated in the articulation agreements, you're gonna keep on that timeline. At Stanford, you might not. You might have to stay an extra quarter, extra 2. We've seen transfers stay an extra year, and that's more challenging, certainly.
And Dean Shaw, this is one thing that I'm sure you're giving me permission to share this information. Is people are asking what's the percentage of transfer admissions getting in, and the information that you've given me permission to share is that 100% of people that don't apply don't get in.
That's exactly right.
So that is that is
We,
that
we
is
don't,
that is an accurate information, right?
that is absolutely right and the right response. And if it's very competitive. That's it's all. But I never talk about admit rates. I just it's you'd be discouraged. So I think you don't get in if you don't apply. But I really think students have to be very thoughtful about this process of next steps. And of course, not have all your eggs in one basket. And I know you won't because you've got all of these amazing opportunities in the state. So, if you feel comfortable and it's a place that you think you'd be deliriously happy and there are others as well, then, take your shot. But to keep in mind that probably of all the schools in the state, this is probably the toughest one.
I will chime in. The brain whatever lapse has ended, and the final requirement that I did not share with you is the language requirement.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right, very important. And that's basically that if you want to graduate from Stanford, you have to have the equivalent of 1 year of language training, and you can get previous courses evaluated for equivalency.
Yeah,
And
and that
any
oh,
other
so,
questions? I'm open to questions now.
Dean Shaw, they want to know, do you need to have a 4.0 or can you have a 3.9 or 3 point? So so that's a question. There's a lot of questions that have been asking about that.
You have to have a pretty strong record. I mean, foundationally, in a competitive environment, you have to have done well. But what we see, and particularly in most recent, I mean, wherever you are, whatever school because what we find is a lot of folks' lives change. They navigate around. They may go here and they may. So if it's early work, we focus less on that. We're really looking at the work you're doing in the last period of time of your efforts. But to be honest with you, you have to have a strong record, and you have to have courses, academic courses, on the transcript. And strong means A's. A's. I mean, the reality is A's and B. That's very important. But we know life gets in the way sometimes, and we do have cases. I said we're holistic, where for whatever reason, some years ago you were somewhere and it didn't pan out, but we are aware of second time around, or people hitting the ground running after some early iteration or some falter. So, but your record has to be strong, no question. I'm not going to put a GPA on it. They're not all 4.0s, I can tell you that. But the reality is, we remember I talked about the whole person. We look at lots of different pieces of information, including your support.
This is another question about some people are asking about letters of recommendation. Do they need to be from your professor? Do they need to be from your job? Do they need to be from transfer center?
Right. They should be from somebody that's taught you fairly recently, that you know well and have a good relationship with. you know, you want to lean towards really a positive experience in the classroom that you've had, because you have the option of choosing. And then we ask for comments about your graduating good standing for someone, but you can also get a supplemental rec sent in from somebody you work with or somebody else that will testify to your candidacy, and that's fine as well. So, but you really, I would say this to anybody applying to college, lean to your strong suit to the best of your ability.
Um, Dr. Anderson, they're asking about do they need for when they're transferring, um, besides their besides their so this is I think it's going a lot of questions about the classes, exact classes, number of units, how are those selected, how are they chosen?
How are they chosen for transfer or
Giving credit, yeah.
yeah, that's a really good question. Other than the conversion, what one of the things, so I'm going to go back to what I was talking about before. When there's really a two-step process in getting classes transferred. There's the process for getting classes transferred for general credit, and then how many credits you'll be bringing in to help you meet the 180 you need total to graduate. And then there's the second step is a process for determining which classes you can transfer as equivalencies for a particular major. And both of those are determined by the people who are doing the evaluations. So the registrar's office, those are the folks who evaluate how many credits you bring in, how many units you bring in for general credit. And I don't know that they do anything beyond my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this, is that they look at the courses you've taken, and examine whether or not it's similar to a course that is offered at Stanford. And so one thing I do, I get to look at the annotated transcripts for the students who have been accepted. And I see that most units, most classes, most coursework is accepted for credit unless it's something that we don't teach. For example, algebra. Stanford doesn't teach any algebra courses. So if you've taken algebra, which many people do in college, you won't, those credits will not be transferred. But by and large, most courses on transcripts get transferred. But I can't really give you many other details about how that is determined.
We do a credit evaluation before you come, so you can build that into your decision. So in other words, you'll hear from us about before you make your commitment to Stanford, you'll know what the credit evaluation is for the breadth anyway. And because we ask for that for the admitted students, and then you could look at the UCs or something, and you might make a decision that, boy, that I got, whatever the credit imbalance is such that I'm going to make a decision to go on because I'd like to move at this pace. But you'll have that information.
People want to know about admission, people, your AP credits, but also if you were a dual admit, if you were in high school and you took community college classes, which one are you considered?
Yeah, the community college. If you're a dual student, we don't count those. If you're a dual and you're taking courses for high school graduation in a dual program, and again, we don't have a program like the state of Washington where you can take a bunch of community college courses and end up being advanced at that. We don't do that. So and then I shouldn't do this program because I feel discouraging. But we're pretty tough on AP too. We grant some credit, but we grant AP credit at a pretty high level. So like most departments are saying we'll take the credit at 5. Some don't take it. So on a score of 1 to 5, that's pretty. I mean, the highest score will get credit. There's some variability there, but we're pretty tough on it. I think what you're hearing is Stanford wants to teach you. And they want you to come here and experience these things. But you'll get some advanced credit for advanced placement. but not if it's concurrent, if it's part of a dual credit thing in high school.
Yeah, and the other thing is we're gonna have, I think, in a couple of weeks, 5 transfer students so they could talk about their experience that went from community college to Stanford. I think two of them are in our organization, so um, but they'll be on here and you could ask them. A lot of people are asking questions of like I think they will be better to answer that. Um, the other question people are asking about if they didn't do well in high school, but were really good at community college, would that hurt them?
That's fine. In other words, we just want to know you graduated, but that's a lot of times that may exactly be the reason that you went on to community college and then you turned your life around. And that's fine. We're not going to, the high school record we'll look at it, but it doesn't have as much influence as your college record.
So somebody put in there that if you have an associate degree, that counts against you and you're hurt. And some people saying it says it improves your chances. How does the associate degree
No,
affect?
it doesn't hurt your chances if you have an associate's degree. You've done it. You've finished the 2-year cycle, and or if you're in a 2-year program and you anticipate getting an associate's degree as you transition on. Both those things are positive. There's, our preference is that, our preference would be that you've spent 2 years generally in the community college system or in different systems, but that add up to 2 years. So no penalty. The associates is great. That's fine.
And Dr. Anderson, some people are asking about the PMW or PW, the writing requirement.
Oh, power,
Yeah.
PWR. Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
And they want to know, can that requirement be met at community college and how does that work?
It is possible. We have a certain process during the summer before classes start, where students can submit details. They can submit their syllabi, and I believe maybe even some writing samples through a portal to our Power PWR office to be evaluated to see if your community college classes will meet the standard. And actually, because if you're in California, especially, what I understand is that um, the requirements for the writing classes there are generally more likely to count toward as equivalent to Power One than other schools. So it's possible.
This is another question for you, Dr. Anderson. Uh, is it possible to double major and what are the requirements for that?
Oh, yeah, it is possible to double major. Stanford is one of those schools where double majoring is not, the standard or the common or popular choice because they have very high standards for what they want you to know and what they want you to do to satisfy a major. But there certainly is possible to do a double major. If you want to graduate with a double major, you have to satisfy all your general ed requirements and you have to complete all of the requirements for each major without any overlap. So if we just use a round figure that the average major is 80, requires you to do 80 units, and you do 2 of those, that's what, 160 units. And let's say, you only need 180, you need a minimum of 180 to graduate. So that would mean you'd have to satisfy 160 units that are just for those 2 majors. You might be able to transfer in, say, 10 or 20% from courses that you've taken elsewhere, but still, it's a pretty big lift for a transfer student. And so you'll get to the point, more than likely, where you'll be thinking, can I afford, in terms of time and money to stay more quarters, additional quarters so that I can finish two majors? Or can I just do one major like most graduates do, and then maybe a minor? Or find other opportunities that will help me to build on this particular interest that I have?
Yeah, and I would just jump in and say about, I think it's correct, 25 or 30% of our undergraduates actually stay here and go for a master's degree. So, I mean, it's amazing. Maybe it's because they just never want to leave the campus. I can't quite tell, but that's an opportunity for you to pursue two different fields of study, but you end up with a graduate degree, and that's very much inculcated into the sort of the community that we live in. There are a whole bunch of students who've been here 4 years or for their undergraduate years, and then they might spend a fifth. Some are really wild, and they actually they concurrently do the master's and the baccalaureate in their last year, but that's kind of hard to do. So, but that's an option.
Dean Shaw, this student wants to know what qualities and characteristics do you look for in qualified applicants outside of academic work?
I think probably the most important thing for them to know is if you can think of all the non-cognitive terms, resilience, leadership. We have about 30 different possibilities. Creativity. None of them count more than any other, but it really is. These are human characteristics that you express in your essays. Challenges that you've had in your life, reasons for why you want to pursue certain majors, certainly the challenges you faced, or the successes that you've had. All of these will be reflections of you as a human being, and it's very broad and deep. So there's no absolutes in terms of qualities, except that we do look at qualities, but we don't prioritize them. I think the reality is that human beings have a lot of different characteristics and qualities, and the question we would ask is, how has that impacted your life? But it's also, how does it impact your academic interest and your pursuit of higher education? And what's influenced you, and what has been the impact on your journey? We'll look at all of those things and then try to make a determination. We have students who've applied who've had completely different lives, the vets, for example. But we've had people that have gone out to work and come back many years later and said, I just really think I want to go on, and gone into community colleges, and their pursuit is, we look at those qualities, the issue of, wow, look at that. That's amazing that they did that and came back, and look how well they're doing, and all the above. So we really celebrate success. Wherever it happens in your life, that becomes very, very important. So I can't tell you. That was a lot of talking to say I really can't give you the answer, because it's all the above. There are a lot of really extraordinary qualities that I think humans carry, and we care about that.
So this person is asking a question for you, Dean Shaw. They have 120 semester units. Should they not even consider applying to Stanford?
Well, again, if you've already heard it, we're going to cut it off at 90, and you may be nuts if you have that many. And of course, are they all transferable units? Because what I see sometimes is folks start out and they might be pushing towards a particular vocation. Now, this group wouldn't be, because I think pre-med CC suggests that you're in really transferable courses, but you're going to get cut off at 90 courses. So you'd have to really describe why it is you're willing to give up 30 units to come to Stanford. But we have a 2-year requirement. So that's the answer. We don't want folks here who aren't going to spend 2 years in pursuit of the Stanford degree. So it's going to be a tough decision to make.
Um, so this person wants to know if my school is not listed on the TES, which I don't know what that is, the college source website, would it, um, does that mean you won't accept my school? I think as long as you're accredited, right?
Yeah, you know, if you're accredited two-year, if you're a two-year community college anywhere in the country, you're and accredited, and then you know, the key here would be the academic offerings and what the courses that you're taking. So it's not a VOTEC, right? It really is an academic two-year program, and that really we don't have any preferences for anybody. We have, as I said, we have a lot of community college students from everywhere. So we really look for the tops in those environments.
Uh, Dr. Anderson, some of the students want to know if they've taken Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3. Um, do they have to retake it at Stanford?
Not necessarily. It really depends. That's part of the transfer credit evaluation process. And the registrar's office just instituted a new process for evaluating course-to-course equivalency. So, what would happen if somebody comes into Stanford and they've taken Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3? What they would do is they would submit a form with information about their class, and they'd submit the syllabus along with that, the name and what course they think it will be equivalent to. So we don't have Calc 1, we don't have a class that's called Calc 1 or Calc 2 or Calc 3. You might. And so what you would do is you would submit this form and you'd basically be saying, here's my Calc 1 course, here's the syllabus for Calc 1. I think it is equivalent to, say, Math 19, which is generally the equivalent. And then that your information would be routed to the math department, and they'd look over things and they'd say, yeah, that's pretty much what we teach for our Calc 1. So yes, you have had the equivalent training for Math 19, and then it would be fine. Or they might say, no, this is not the equivalent, in which case, if Calc 1 is required for a major, then that you decide you want to pursue, then you would have to take it again. However, and I do want to make clear that that doesn't mean that it won't count toward as a general education credit. So it might still count toward the 180 units you need.
The other question is people are asking if they've taken, if they're native speakers for their foreign language, how does that work?
Good question. So if they're native speakers, then what they will have the option to do as part of the onboarding process. Stanford has a wonderful onboarding process, and by that I mean it's almost like a course that you take over the summer to help you with the transition. And this is for all new students, people who enter as transfers, people who enter as freshmen. It's called Approaching Stanford. And as part of this course, it's on Canvas even. As part of this course, you'll be submitting information about the different requirements. You'll be telling them information about your language training. And so if you are an international student, or you grew up in a different country and grew up learning a language that is not English, then you will let them know as part of that Approaching Stanford process. And then the people in the language department very well may waive you from the language requirement. They won't waive you, but they basically will say, yes, you've satisfied the language requirement.
Dean Shaw, I think probably like almost 20 of these questions are what's the range of the GPA of accepted students?
Everybody wants this formula.
They want to know, yeah, they want to know the exact formula and
there
the
isn't one,
magic,
but
we call it the secret sauce.
I think probably if I were to say anything about grade point average, the earliest grade point average would have been problematic. Not problematic. I mean, that is, in the beginning or somewhere in the past, that the more recent accomplishments have to be very, very strong at the A level. I mean, it's not or B, but if we see faltering in the middle, if we see faltering in more recent semesters, that's problematic. But you can still have a 3.8, but because it reflects some courses from some time ago, and you're still going to be we're going to look at your more recent classwork and coursework, and if you're really knocking the ball out of the park, you're still in competition, so to speak. So I can't give you one. I'm not going to cut it off. That's because you're only human.
The other question somebody else is that they have been at community college for 6 years, both full-time and part-time. Does that affect their admission?
That's a good question. The answer is if we understand the reasoning that's because you were working full-time and had to support your family and so forth. That's a factor. Generally, we'd like to see a much more predilection to full-time in the last year. It's just being part-time forever is a little bit problematic. So I think that might be a little bit harder to embrace. But there has to, if there are good reasons, and it's all, and of course that will bring you to who's supporting you from the faculty, and there are lots of other factors again that we're taking into account.
Some people want to know, would there be research opportunity available to transfer students?
Absolutely. One thing we do really well, if you have the motivation to do it, is provide amazing opportunities to students. If they're going to work hard to pursue that, I think they can find their way.
Yeah, and I think if you come to some of our sessions, Stanford even has summer programs for community college students. And I think Dr. Anthony, Marcella Anthony, comes every year and does a whole talk, and she runs all the summer programs.
Yep.
And so be on the lookout for that session. Some people want to know about the California High School Equivalency Program exam, or GED. Would it decrease their chances if they?
As long as you have a high school equivalency or a degree, because I know often that if we were to fall back on the high school transcript, that might make people feel like, well, I wasn't doing that well in high school. So we're looking at your college record, but you have to be a high school graduate or have the equivalency exam. That's
Or GED, yeah.
Yeah, GED.
They want to know in terms of financial aid and scholarships for low-income students, and how does that work? And you stated, but just restate it again, because
I would just say you fill out one thing we do it's not we ask for both the FAFSA and the profile. We use Cal Grant, but any student coming in, and many of you are independent, so that's good. Or you have a family, but if you make less than $100,000 a year, you come for free. How's that? But one of the things that does come up, which I think is a little bit challenging, is the number of years that you can take aid, like state aid, or other. Time does run out. You can't keep taking federal or state aid, and so there might be some limitation on that. But we use all of those all of those in institutional. We spend mostly institutional money on you, but there could be some limitation. For example, if you come here and decide you're going to spend 7 years, we're not going to pay, we're not going to cover your cost. You smile, but guess what? We've had a few.
Really?
So and I didn't talk about the VA benefits, but if there are any vets out there, you also have VA benefits to use as well. But this is an amazing deal in terms of students coming. The vast majority are going to be of the community college kids, first gen kids, all the rest are low income, are going to get a full ride.
This is actually another question that I just saw. What if you are coming from a not privileged background to a place like Stanford? Is there any resources for support for first generation
We have an
low income?
office. We have a fantastic office, first gen low income. Whole bunch of folks are in there, and they're always looking after your interests. So there's a whole community. We have 22% of our students are undergraduates, about 21% overall are first gen low income. So there's a big population here. You'll find your wherever you want, you're going to find the support. It's going to be there.
You can Google the FLISSC, that stands for the First Gen Low Income Student Success Center. And you can
And
learn.
they're great. They're great. They're
They are great.
to be your support.
Yeah, and actually I met someone who just donated a lot of money to that program.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that did happen. Exactly. Yeah.
Um, anyways, some people want to know if they have a C in a class, in a STEM class, are they going to be disqualified to apply?
No. But if they want to major in chemistry, yes, might be. Or but spend some time focusing on why I got the C. But a C is not it's we have to be accepting of what the circumstances are, but we are looking at your grades, and that's real. And actually for transfer students, we kind of like to know that you have some sense of the direction you might want to go in. So when you meet with Dr. Anderson, you can talk about that or how that plays out. But I imagine you would say, Dr. Anderson, that they come in with all these ideas of doubt exactly what they're going to do, and then they realize the options that they have, and they go, I had no idea that I'd have this kind of opportunity or breadth. And then they take another class and they go, why was it I was trying to do this other thing when I really all my life wanted to do this? So we have a lot of integrated majors, and it's just amazing the choices that you have. So there's no absolutes about that, but it's and we might look at the grade and say, hell, this kid's a writer. Why I can see why they got the C in chemistry. But that might have influence on considering your area of interest if it's a lower grade.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have had one student that came in this September has already changed her major, her decision about what she wants to major in because she took a class and discovered a whole new area of interest.
The other question people are asking is, do you interview for transfer admission?
Do you get what?
You interview.
We don't.
The other question people are asking, what if you started at a four-year university, then went to a community college? Can you apply to Stanford
Yes.
as a... Okay. They're asking you what specific courses are required before transferring that you must have or that you recommend.
Well, we don't have any articulation agreements, so but I think you need to be taking academic courses. That's why I said in the beginning of my comments, take a look at the expectations of the articulation agreements for UC and CSU, and those courses are probably courses that are academic and cover breadth requirements, and they would make some sense, but they aren't ours. So we're not going to. But that might be a good guide. That's good guidance. And of course, you're going to talk about pre-med CC, right? You're going to talk about kinds of classes that if you really want to go on to the health professions, we haven't even talked about the pre-med advisors we have here, but the reality is that that necessitates absolute types of courses in order to be at a point towards your senior year where you're taking the medical or the boards for medical school or other. You have to be prepared in the STEM areas. So obviously, coming in with prerequisites really is important. But it's really social sciences, humanities, natural sciences, engineering, whatever it is. It should be courses that are sort of preparing you
your major
for a major of some kind. Yeah.
Some people want to ask about do you apply to a certain major? Like I know this is a big UC thing that some majors are impacted versus others. If you apply to Stanford, do you have to apply as a major or do you apply to the
No, you
university?
just give us your area of interest, and we'll see that, and we'll pay some attention to it. But you're not applying to a school; you're applying generally, and then we turn you over to Dr. Anderson. So you can walk your way through this and have lots of conversations about what the possibilities are. But we admit you to the university, not to the major, and not to the school. So we have 3 undergraduate schools, and we do not. You make that determination after you get here.
So people want to know about TOEFL and IELTS language. Do you need to take those if you're an international student?
Yes, well, it depends. It's if you have a language issue and you want to show your proficiency in English, then yes, you could take the exam, but we don't require it. And but we need to have some sense of your proficiency. So taking international language exams, good idea, not a bad idea. Unless we're looking at your English courses and you're straight A's and you write an essay that's a Pulitzer Prize winner in English, then you might be okay. So that's a decision you'll have to make.
People want to ask if they have W's on their transcript, would they be rejected for that?
No, but obviously we usually learn about why that iteration of their life, but it's nice to have an explanation as to why they withdrew from a course. If it's one, maybe just an errant one somewhere, it might not impact us. But if it's a whole semester, it's probably not a bad idea to let us know why that took its course, why the W's.
Another question is parents had bachelor's degrees outside the US. Um, are they considered first gens?
If who does?
Their family, their parents outside.
No. If we use that term as a term that says your father or mother did not graduate from a 4-year university. If you graduated from an international university, then you're not first gen. Your parents, that is your parents.
They want to know, do you do spring admissions?
No.
What about minors? Can they do minors?
Yes, Dr. Anderson. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, this person is a pre-med major. They want to do a double major and a minor. And I would just say, why? Why would you like?
Yeah.
There's a lot of requirements to do that. You want to do research. There's a lot of other things to be a well-rounded. And we've had the deans of admission from Stanford and Yale and everybody. You need to be and just taking classes, it's not going to make you look sexy, I guess, you're attractive applicant because you've only gone to classes. You don't have time to do clinical stuff, research. I mean, research to do good quality research, you need to spend at least 20 hours
Yeah.
during the academic year. So I don't know why there's this whole thing of wanting to do 7 majors and minors. It's um
Absolutely agree as somebody who's been a pre-med advisor as well. I agree completely that you do not need all those credentials to get your attention on admissions by admissions deans for medical school. You have so many better ways. They want well-rounded. They do holistic admissions, similar to how Stanford does for transfer students. So don't just think about having a credential.
um the other question, and the other part of it too, is you have to understand there's 168 hours in a week, and for you to be a functioning human being, you need to sleep at least 40 hours of it.
Yeah.
Then just start subtracting, going to taking a shower and eating food, all that stuff takes about a good 7 hours. I mean, you could be like some people and take less showers, that'd be like 6 hours. So like there's only the economics of time, and how are you able to, take 22 units and do all this different stuff. It just, you have to be realistic. And then you also have to study for the favorite thing that all pre-meds love and adore, which is the MCAT.
Yeah.
Which so um
Yeah, I think also it's not a bad idea for you to really find some joy in your life. I mean, you get joy in the classroom, but go out and just take a run and do things outside the classroom that you embrace and love and make you deliriously happy. Because if you're just driving yourself into the ground, I guarantee you probably aren't deliriously happy, and
Yes.
somebody else is influencing it in some way. But whatever it is, but that's not what it takes. What it takes is the whole person, and you need to pursue that.
and another question is, do I have to be part of an honors program to improve my chances? And if my school doesn't have an honors program, should I go to a
We review in context, so wherever you are, we're there with you, right?
yeah,
We
if you
don't we don't lean towards anything. Obviously, if you're in an honors program, they're going to give you, courses that are really good challenging courses, and that's good. But if we're in a school that doesn't have any of that, we still are going to look at the kids that apply from it and think of the context when we think about their candidacy. We don't do inter school comparisons. We just we are where we are.
yeah, and then the other part of it too, like if a school that's close to you that's 4 hours away, like that's just not like possible, or to just do the best that you can with what you have. Um, Somebody wants to know what's the age range of transfer students.
Well, we've taken it. It's been from 16 to 60. I mean, we get transfers from all over. We got former rock stars that got in, and we got a really huge variety. And I told you I love the transfers because I love their life experience. I love often the community college transfers because they come with amazing life experience too. In many cases in those in the later years, but they said to hell with this, I'm going back, and they make a point of doing it. So, and the 16-year-old, of course, is a genius. So there you go. They just sort of, or they've done pretty darn well and just blew out the 2-year sector or their school and are ready to go. So,
I would
okay.
just say, always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. That's
Yeah,
that's always been my goal in life.
yeah, there you go.
Um, People want to know if they transfer to Stanford, would they improve their chances of getting into Stanford Law School or med school?
Oh, that's a great question. The answer is no. I think not. I think obviously Stanford faculty know their kids, but I think uh, it would help you get into a lot of graduate schools. And Stanford will look at you comparable, but they're also going to look to everybody else in terms of their graduate programs, and they're going to take the best graduate student or those that rise to be most competitive. So, but it's certainly not a bad school to apply from if you want to go somewhere else. And certainly you're welcome to apply, but there's no advantage. There's no, you're going to have to compete. It's just doing it all over again. Applying to medical school or the law school or doctoral programs, there's no extra. The only thing I would say is that the reviewing graduate faculty looking at kids they know the institution. So they do know that. So some of the Stanford undergraduates do get into graduate school here. But it might be that they've been taught in that area, and the faculty members have been dying to get them as a graduate student. But they also might get into Harvard or Princeton or Yale or somewhere else. And that's all fine. Or even Cal. Go Bolt, okay, or whatever.
I work really close to Cal, so I see a lot of Cal shirts. What are some of I actually tutored somebody in calculus that went to Cal, so there you go.
There you go.
People are asking about what kind of extracurricular activities you want to see people doing.
Yeah, no, it's everything. It's anything. It's whatever. What we like. And again, at the college level, you've already. I think probably what we want, if anything, if you want to share what you love, man. Share what you love to do. There's no preference. There's no hierarchy. There's no nothing. If you have a chance to pursue something outside the academic environment, great. If it's internships, great. Whatever. Just do what you love. Do what you love. Do something that really jazzes you up when you go over there to do it, and then you can write about it if you want. But there's no hierarchy of this stuff.
Life is too short to do not what you don't enjoy doing.
That's right. It's too short.
One example is I have a couple of friends that enjoy playing golf, and I like playing golf just like really stresses me out. So it's just not something that I choose to do because I would more likely want to take the club and, bat at the golf club. So I just don't do it. So I think, but if Dean Shaw says that for you to get into Stanford, you absolutely have to play golf, then, you don't want to do something makes you miserable. And I think that's what life is, You have choices. If you think a certain internship brings joy to your soul, then do it. You know, like one of the things that I really enjoy doing is teaching citizenship classes, and I don't want to be immigration attorney but I just really enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with what I do on my job or what I want to do in the future. So, but I just enjoy it. Um, Somebody here is a high school student and they want to know if they should go to community college and apply as a transfer, or should they apply from high school, and which one would be easier or harder? I mean, it's kind of
Well,
like saying,
again, you're pushing for the percentages, but they're both impossible. So go for it.
it's kind of like saying, do you want to cross the Pacific Ocean on a raft or the Atlantic Ocean on the raft? I think it's going to
Yeah,
be.
no, that's exactly right. They're both tough, and you just live your life, do the best that you can, and then realize that you can take your shot here, whatever, but take your shot in other places. And I would never choose a place to go because I thought you'd make up the idea that it would improve your chances. You should do your best in high school, and if your options later on are to go to community college, so be it. But don't. I think the trouble is we spend so much time worrying about getting in that it gets in the way of living life. And I've been in this career for a long, long time. And if you go to a bookstore, you're going to find 500 books on how to get in. If you go to the websites, you're going to find billion-dollar industry and consulting. You're going to find all that stuff, and they're going to give you all this advice that takes away your own choice. You should just be yourself, be your authentic self, be your honest self, and look for things that really make you happy. Work hard, always work hard. Sure, you absolutely should work hard. You should master course material. You ought to do that. But you also shouldn't live your life worrying about, oh, I didn't get into Stanford, therefore I'm a failure. That's nonsense, complete nonsense. This is a gamble, higher education, and you're going to spread your wings and make sure you have lots of good choices. And wherever you land, be happy and go for it and be your best. And that's all you can do. Yeah, so it's this. Everybody's looking for a formula. I've never seen. It's just uncanny. And then if I do this and I do that, and then I do this and I do that, and then I say, are you happy? And the answer might be no. So just do what your advisors tell you to do in community college and take the right courses. That's important. And then the rest of the story is live your life.
Dean Shaw's been doing this since he's 9 years old, so
I started at 9. I didn't go to school, but I love it. Yeah.
Dr. Anderson, people want to know, do you just do transfer advising, or do you also do pre-med advising or career advising?
Well, I will tell you, so the titles that the academic advisors, the centralized academic advisors have is we're undergraduate advising directors, and so, or UADs. And most of us will tell you that we do a little bit of all of that just as part of our job and, meeting the whole student. We also do a lot of referring to the specialists who are trained to do that. So I am definitely happy to talk with students about career interest, particularly as it relates to thinking about what different majors can help them prepare for different careers. But then I will also direct them to the Career Education Center. I used to be at my former institution at Washington University in St. Louis, I was a pre-med advisor, and I really enjoy doing that. Yeah, working with students as they're trying to get ready and prepare for applying to grad school. However, here my only title for advising is as a transfer advisor now. And so if you wanted to talk to me about getting into med school, I can certainly have those kind of general conversations, but I would also send students to the pre-professional advisors who spend all of their time getting information they need to advise students about getting into med school or law school, etc.
And then the two more questions before I let everyone go, because I'm actually going to get kicked out of my closet. People wanting to know, international students that are on F1, are they advantage, disadvantage? How do you view international students
We have
for
international
admissions?
students admitted every year. Here's the disadvantage. You have to make sure the only place that our financial aid policy doesn't cover is fully any international student. If you're an international citizen, our policy for international citizens is what we call need aware. It's not need blind. So you have to make a decision to say, yes, I'm applying for financial aid, or no, I'm not. And there is some differential there. That's the only category where that has to, because we don't have enough funding for all international students. So we have to limit that. We do have a number of international students on aid, but that's an important consideration.
And then the last question is, actually, second to last question, what about housing? What do is there housing provided, or would students?
Yes, the answer is yes. We have a big transfer community, and we have fabulous on-campus facilities, and then I think in some cases we have families there might be some that are already in the area that have a family and they don't want to move. That's okay. But generally, I think, as I said, 98% or 95% of the students that are transfers are on campus. And we have family housing. We have all sorts of opportunity here.
And then Dr. Anderson, any last words of wisdom before we go?
Wow. So since I cannot really say anything, I have no information about admissions. As Dean Shaw said many times, they do the admitting and then they hand them over to advising. So I really don't have any information about how to get into Stanford, but I definitely would encourage you to take a look at the website. You can get a lot of information about what it's like at Stanford for students and what the opportunities are available. But just, Googling different types of researches. For example, there were questions about whether or not you can do a research at Stanford, and I want you to go take a look at undergraduate research at Stanford and learn. There's a wonderful website, and there's so many opportunities, and et cetera. So Google is your friend, and learn about what you can do at Stanford. And then, if you get in, when you get in, come talk to me, and I'm ready to help you then.
And then what about you, Dean Shaw? Any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, be happy and vote. Okay, those two things. Just
I agree.
this is along the way of life. This is just a pathway. It's another iteration of your life, but do your best to be happy. And then the second part is every single one of you out there, if you can, vote. I know, I know this gentleman who's moderating this believes in that since he's a voter
Uh,
advocate out there working hard to get people to vote here. Where are you, in Nevada, I think, or somewhere? Yeah.
yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's good.
Yes, sir. All righty. Well, thank you everyone for coming.